be exposing some of this stuff. I want you to know in a few minutes I'm going to bring a very special guest, a man who is an internationally acclaimed and internationally recognized expert in helping people get out of financial challenges. I have to laugh when I read the newspapers and see the media and the dribble that they bring out. They get all these people on TV giving you same old, same old, same old. Get a budget, negotiate a pay rise, get an extra job. Folks, let me tell you, that does not work. I'm telling you, what they're telling you does not work. If you want to experience the extraordinary, you've got to do something uncommon. Every one of us inside of us has an expectancy. Sadly, what has happened through the International International Monetary Fund, the globalist banking elite, the Rockefellers, and dare I might say the CABAL, I've never used that word, but they've conspired together to cripple economies. And you and I know this all started through the gateway drug of what they called a disease. By the way, I've got a question to ask. If you bought a product at the store and it was faulty, wouldn't you expect a refund? It's amazing to me. You get a toy and it's faulty or it's broken or it doesn't work. Do they tell you keep buying the same faulty product? Or does the store give you a refund? Sadly, our governments have put ourselves and our livelihoods and our lives at risk, but yet have never gone for a refund for the people that are lining the pockets of our politicians and heads of health departments. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Where's our former health minister, Greg Hunt, one of the golden children of the WEF? This week, one of our very own morning show experts who 2 years ago was blasting the likes of Craig Kelly and him and his co-host were just hammer and tong, this week said he's sick and tired of hearing about Jabbathonia and he's sick and tired of it. Yet these people were the very ones out there perpetrating the lie, the deception. Our governments have not gone back to these companies that pushed an untested, unproven, faulty product on humanity. And now we're seeing a real epidemic of sudden deaths. All of a sudden, inexplicable. And all of this also caused what I believe the cause and the effect of the financial disaster we are in right now. Now listen to me very carefully. There is a way to crawl out of this personally. I'm not talking globally, I'm talking about you. I know many of you, and if you want, come in the chat. How many of you want to get ahead? Forget about the rest of it. We're talking about you. You are not responsible for anyone else's financial world. See, right now, chances are you're scared, and rightly so. Here's what you're scared about. Your property market and your properties are about to crash between 7 and 15%. Major companies like Facebook and Twitter are firing thousands of employees. Hopefully, they should fire the owners. The cost of food, travel, petrol, housing has gone up. And yet, what's this? Spending, they're trying to shrink spending. What are people supposed to stop feeding their families? And the best they come up with is get an extra job. Well, what happens if you haven't followed the mandates? You can't. Only to end up paying more taxes, less time, more exhaustion, less time with your family. Then they say things, well, pay your bills weekly. Many people out there are struggling. And please don't tell me you don't know what it's like, because when you hear my story, See, many people look at my success now, but they weren't around when I lost my home. Lost my home, $500,000 in debt. I won't get into how bad it was for me, to the point where I was bordering on a complete mental breakdown, and I've got to be honest with you, yes, suicidal. I know what it's like. So when people get out there and start posting all this crap out there, and the shock jocks, they put all this rubbish out there, they don't know what I had to go through. The suicide, the suicide attempts, the sleepless nights. Now, my close friends do, but I'm telling you, you can crawl out of it. I'm telling you, you can claw your way back. I'm telling you, you don't have to succumb to the volatility of investment portfolios. I'm going to show you a graph. I showed it the other day. This is what my friend that's about to hear today, he showed me. This is scary. This is the volatility of the market. This is what keeps people awake at night. Now, you may not be able to control it Australia-wide, but you can control it for yourself individually. You see, our interest rates are rising, and they will continue to rise month after month after month after month after month. Why? The agenda is you own nothing, and you will be happy. The march towards socialism, government control, is out of proportion. Our adulterous affair with China is crippling us. It is crippling us because we don't hold them to account when it comes to climate change. Yet we are willing to sacrifice our workers, our coal mines and our industries, while Penny Wong and Albo go making pacts with them and sending billions of our dollars to a war that we don't even belong in. All because it is a progressive thing to do. And then they blame that on our prices. Let me assure you, we don't get our oil or our energy from there. Put that in your diary, folks. We don't. Because you sound angry. Look, I'm passionate. If my way of expressing myself offends you, just jump on some other lame duck there and let them help you. But what we do every month is put our neck on the line to help people because we care. Last night I was on a Zoom call to the Indigenous people up there in Alice Springs. We're going to Alice Springs March 8th. I'm going there just to check things out, talk to the people, walk around the streets with the kids. I'm not scared walking around the streets with the kids out there that are suffering and hurting. And then, of course, you got some numbnuts get on some forum, and all they want to do is post stuff about me from my past. That's the best you got. Knock yourself out, sunshine. Doesn't bother me. We've been putting up with that nonsense for 20 years. But yet they don't raise one thing nor raise $1 to help the communities up there. But I digress. We've got to face it. The pandemic worked like a charm to cripple you. Now all they want you to do is get into maintenance mode, maintain, watch this, or defense mode. Anyone who knows anything about any game and the game of life, you've got to learn to go on the attack. When I faced my financial crisis, let me tell you what I did. Number one, I got myself a financial mentor, including the man that's going to be on here in a minute. Number two, I followed instructions. The level of your thinking, the level of your knowledge got you to where you are now. The level of our knowledge, the job system, the maintain, the Aussie thing, buy more properties. Well, how's that working for you right now? You see, the third thing I did was I had to work out what I could control and what I could not control. I can't control the WEF, the WHO, the Labor Party, I can't control Lydia Thorpe. I can't do that. All I can control is my sphere of influence, my family, my home. Then I learned to learn from experts. I learned to invest in education. Now, I'm not talking about university degrees. Listen, I know people with university degrees, and I do not mean to be offensive. They are absolute numbnuts, half of them. I could tell you of doctors that when they come to my seminars, they look like they walk out of a slum. Now, I'm not against education, and I'm not against doctors, and please, I don't mean to offend anybody. But formal education will make you a living, but it doesn't necessarily get you a life. And let me say this, formal education is still subject to the government and what they want you to do and not do with your body or your identity. Let me add that digital identity is going at the speed of light, and we are, as a country, we are the prototype. Forget China. They already got their level, but this is a far deeper one. So I got a mentor. I remember when I basically, and I'll be up front, couldn't afford basic necessities. This is not too long ago. But I engaged in a mentor. I learned from experts. I learned that I had to outlay and point my life in the direction when I wanted to go, and I had to limit the access of my thinking. And then I had to learn how to follow instructions. Now today, if you follow the smart money, you'll laugh all the way to the bank. You don't want to just maintain. Maintaining is going backwards. You cannot, in the natural way of doing things, going to beat inflation, energy crisis, petrol bills, living expenses, and mortgages going through the roof. You cannot. You've got to rely on something outside the box. Now, my very special guest today has traveled the world with the likes of Harry Dent, Robert Kiyosaki, Jim Richards, and so many of the greats. My great friend is a great mentor, a great coach, and a great helper of people, and a great mentor. My great friend, Sean Ellison. How are you, Sean?
Very good, thank you, Pat. Fantastic to be here. Excited about this, and thank you for the opportunity.
Sean, let me ask you. We're experiencing a crisis in the cost of living right now. I want you to be brutally honest. You've traveled the world. You're not new to economics. I've seen your office. I've seen all your computers, all your graphs. What the heck caused this? Was it a problem in Russia?
No, a lot of people talk about this because they're experiencing a crisis in the cost of living right now. We know everything has gone up dramatically. The problem with this is everything is going up more in price than our incomes. So our incomes are increasing at a slower rate than everything else. So this is what leads people into this financial crisis that they're facing right now, where they're on a fixed limited income and everything is going up dramatically in cost. Now, what's caused this, to answer your question, it's not Russia and Ukraine, it's not supply chain issues. They may be side effects of this, but the real cause of this increase in the cost of living, it's called inflation. Inflation simply means it's more expensive this year than it was last year. So this inflation that we're seeing right now is a direct result of one thing and one thing only: out of control money printing and government debt. So they've printed trillions, literally trillions of dollars, Pat, in the last couple of years. This money printing, creating money out of thin air, is what's caused this inflation. That's what's caused this inflation. Now, the thing to understand is that this is a deliberate government policy. The reason they've done this is because when inflation goes up, they actually increase the tax revenue that they receive from us as citizens, right? When everything goes up in price, you receive more, or the government receives more in GST, for example. So they're increasing their tax revenue, and by increasing inflation, it reduces the value of their own caused out of control debt. So it's a deliberate government policy called financial repression. It's a legitimate term, financial repression. So what they do is they steal growth or money from the private sector, you and I, to help reduce and pay off their debt. Because what happens is, because they've had to print so much money, they've caused this out of control cost of living that we're all going through. There's four things that happen when a government gets too far out of debt, right? Or too far in debt, should I say, right? The debt levels are too high. which is what Australia and the US and Canada and the UK, we're all facing right now, out of control debt levels. There's only four things that they can do. Number one, they can pay the debt back. Well, even if they taxed all of our assets as well as our income, they still couldn't pay the debt back. So they can't pay the debt back. Number two, they could restructure the debt. The problem with that is someone's got to take the other side of this out of control debt, and no one's going to do that. They could default on the debt. They could just say, look, we can't afford it. If they do that, they'll be thrown out of office. And you and I know politicians don't want to be out of power, right? So they're not going to do that.
No, they don't.
So the only other thing they can do, the last thing, Pat, is they can devalue the debt, reduce the actual real value of the debt. How do they do that? They do that through increasing inflation, or the technical term is financial repression, which is a fancy way for saying, mind my language, screwing the average person. That's what's happening right now. So,
that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Sean, to me, this reeks of corruption, sleight of hand, and moving the chairs in the Titanic. And folks, listen, we've got so many things to share with Sean, plus one very big special surprise. Sean, there's a lot of talk about interest rates going up, and I remember there was a time when interest rates were 17%. That was standing. Let me ask this question. When interest rates go up, does it only impact property and home loans, or does it have an effect on other areas of our financial life?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. So the Reserve Bank of Australia has increased interest rates for the 9th time in a row. Now, what they're trying to do by increasing interest rates is reduce inflation, reduce this out of control cost of living. The problem is, if you understand how it really works, there's something called the Taylor rule. You should look up the Taylor rule, people listening. This Taylor rule says in order to bring down inflation, you have to increase the interest rate 1.5 times the inflation rate. We're not even at the inflation rate. So we're so far from actually taming inflation through rising interest rates, it's ridiculous. So that's not going to work. But that's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to destroy demand, bring down inflation. They've increased interest rates 9 times in a row. And inflation, as we just found out, is the highest that it's been since 1990, the last 33 years. So it's not working. They're going to have to continue to increase interest rates, which is going to cause a huge problem for people.
It's not working because it went from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, and that's what they're telling us, Sean. This is the thing. That's what they're. Do you honestly think, folks, they're going to tell you something that they're doing sleight of hand? Sean, what's the impact of inflation on people's savings and money in the bank? Because people think money in the bank's safe, right?
Yeah, the biggest risk right now with inflation being so high is to do nothing. That's the biggest risk that you can actually take right now. For example, if you have $1 million cash in the bank, at the current inflation rate, by 2030, just 7 short years from now, that $1 million would be worth $231,000. So you would literally lose 77% of the money that you have in the bank through this financial repression called inflation. So leaving your money in the bank, you'll actually have it stolen from you. And that's what inflation is, Pat, this financial repression. It's actually a silent tax. And people don't understand what's happening. But leaving your money in the bank, Pat, is as good as burning it right now with what we're seeing with inflation. It's very, very dangerous.
Now, folks, just to let you know, if you're enjoying this, next Wednesday I've got a special thing that I'm going to be letting you know, which is free with Sean. But hang on, I've got some other questions. I just want to let folks, this is the guy that helped me get my head right, get the finance in order, crawl my way back step by step, including, by the way, Sean, I've got to say a big thank you. During the, remember that, the flatten the curve, Sean took a little investment that I had and overnight helped me generate 25,000 USD, myself and one of my friends. And I want to thank you publicly for that, Sean, because I didn't know that. And see, folks, here's the thing. You've got to go where the smart money is and where people know. What they know. It's not insider trading or any of that. They know because they check, they study. And Sean will have more to say about that next Wednesday. I'll put the link in the chat during the broadcast here. But Sean, people think that all of this stuff only affects cost of living, but what about retirement accounts? How are they performing right now? And how is that affecting the average pensioner or people that want to retire? How are they performing right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing right now with pension funds around Australia, they lost $55 billion just last year. Most people's retirement accounts are down just over 20%. And if you take into account the rate of inflation, it's even more. So they've lost significant amounts of money, almost 1/5 of their wealth. So retirement accounts are performing very poorly. The reason is, Pat, that the traditional way of investing is broken for the first time in 100 years. Typically, what your financial advisor would do within your retirement account is put 60% of your money in stocks and 40% in bonds. The idea is when stocks go up, bonds go down. When stocks go down, bonds go up. So they offset each other. But what's happened this year is that both stocks and bonds have gone down. So the traditional way of investing for 100 years is broken and it's not working. People are losing dramatic amounts of money in their retirement accounts. And the problem is property prices will fall because they've raised rates so much that many people are going to be forced to sell their house. The other thing to understand here, Pat, is yes, retirement accounts have fallen, but people put most of their wealth in two assets, in property and in their retirement accounts. Now, when both of those assets, where most people have their money, are falling, that's what creates a dire financial situation. And this is really what we're seeing, because 800,000 Australians just this year in 2023 will come out of their fixed interest rate period. In other words, they've been locked in a very low interest rate for the last 3 years. We've had 9 increases in interest rates since then. When they come back to the normal rate, they are going to be in a lot of trouble, paying $500, $1,000 or more per month for their mortgage. This is going to cause a cascading effect of people selling, properties falling, as well as people's retirement accounts falling. It is a big problem right now, and you need to be prepared for this and do something about it.
Sean, what's the biggest risk for the average person right now? What's the biggest risk in your opinion?
I think the biggest risk is to be naive and not really understand what's happening. To do nothing, right? A lot of people do this, Pat. They bury their head in the sand and try and ride it out. That won't this time, because simply having your money in the bank, like we've just spoken about, through inflation, your money will be stolen from you. So by being naive, not understanding very simple skill sets that can generate you income, irrespective of high inflation, low inflation, economy doing well, recession, whatever it is, once you understand these skill sets, you can make money in any one of those situations. So the biggest risk is to do nothing. Be naive about what's actually happening and continue to do the same thing, expecting a different result.
Now, people are very time poor right now. And they're saying, Sean, I know you're telling me this, or maybe I'm too old to learn. You know, does this require a lot of time and effort and energy to learn a new skill set?
Yeah, there's pretty big misconceptions here. One of them is you need a lot of money to make a lot of money. That is absolute rubbish. You need the right skill set, right? So you need to understand something called asymmetrical risk, which sounds very difficult, but it's not. All it simply means is we're taking a small risk to make a much bigger return. There are very simple ways of setting this up that can be done in 30 minutes a week, Pat, 30 minutes a week.
Wow.
These can be done as set and forget investment opportunities that generate you weekly income. In other words, you don't have to monitor these all the time. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing this. And you can have these set up working for you in the background, and they're automating themselves. So it's a very, very powerful way to generate weekly and monthly income.
Now, the average person like me would say, look, I'm just a beginner. Where am I going to learn this? I'm not a financial guy. Sure, I'm not a financial whiz. I'm not an economist. I'm not a trader. I mean, I'm just a beginner. And my first response is everything you need in life, you will learn. Secondly, your life will rise to the level of the voice you choose to believe. Now, you're out there day in, day out, helping people become financially secure and independent. I'll put my hand up here as well. What do you say to people that are afraid and they say, look, I've never done this. I'm just a beginner. I'm scared.
Yeah, and you know what? I understand what that's like, because 23 years ago when I started doing this, I was in the same situation. So what I've been able to do is create a system that people can follow, that are complete beginners, that's put or explained very simply. So people get scared when they hear words they don't understand, or the expert they're listening to can't show them in detail how it works. This is the big difference between me and most other people out there in my industry, is the fact that I will actually show you step by step how it works without the jargon, without the complexity, so that you can actually go away and start utilizing it. So that's what I want to do on Wednesday for everyone, Pat, is show them how you find the investment, how you set it up, and how you make it a set and forget, and you can generate that weekly income that you want. And Pat, if you're anything like me, when you actually see it done, it makes sense rather than just talking about it. So I want to actually show everyone how it works step by step, so that they see it and it makes sense to them straight away, even as a beginner.
You know what I love, guys, and Wednesday Sean's going to do this. The other thing is people say, oh, show me the proof. One of the things I love about your presentation, Sean, is you're not scared to put up a name, surname, numbers, obviously not bank details, but proof. And just give us a couple. I mean, I've got a list here of testimonials from people that I know that have given me their facts, figures, and numbers that they've achieved just in the last few months with you. Could you briefly just give us a couple of illustrations? Well, actually, you know what? Let me give them to you. I know someone that generated a 71% return with VLO in a week with only $82. Now, I also know Sandra, that you know, whose daughter worked for me, making incredible money while at an airport. Sean, just tell us, how many testimonials have you got out there of people?
Thousands and thousands. Let me give you an example from last week, something very current. What we did is we put 4 opportunities into the market. $525 is how much was needed. That's all, not a huge amount of money, $525. Wow. Within a week, we turned that $525 into $4,320. So we can show you how to start generating some pretty incredible income. We also had another one of our members who came to me at the beginning of 2020, and he said, Sean, look, I want to be able to generate income for myself and my family. I've only got a small amount of money in my retirement account, just over $200,000. In 12 months, he generated $1.5 million in profit by following the set and forget strategies that we use for weekly income. So, you know, small amounts of money, 500 into over 4,000 in a week, or even if you've got a larger account, we can show you how to really supercharge that and grow your wealth very quickly with set and forget strategies that are explained to you in everyday language, not the complex jargon that most people use.
Well, Sean, I'm really excited about next Wednesday, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. So you're going to just give us 3 or 4 things that you're going to do next Wednesday. And folks, I'm going to get my team to put the link in the chat right now. Matter of fact, I'll put a link in there right now. But tell us, what are they going to learn on Wednesday? Now, this is free. If you want to continue education with Sean, great. But just get on board and learn. Sean, tell us what we can expect next Wednesday, morning and evening. I'll put a link in the chat. Now, remember, our Zoom is limited. Some people go, oh, how can a Zoom be limited? Because it is, folks. And so, Sean, tell us what we're going to learn next Wednesday when you place this financial freedom event on for our clients. Tell us what we can learn.
Number one, you're going to learn how the government is financially repressing us right now, how that's working, how the current financial system is rigged against you, and obviously what you can do about it. We're then going to talk about the basics of what I do. We're going to break it down simplistically so you know the foundational information. It won't take long to do that. Once we've done that, we're actually going to find an investment live right in front of everyone, and we're going to show you how to make money from it and show you every single step. So you're actually going to have a plan, a detailed plan on how to generate weekly income at the end of the presentation that you're going to be able to use and go out and start implementing. It's going to be a pretty powerful session, Pat.
Well, Sean, I look forward to it, and I want to thank you for taking your time out. I guess you're about to go off to the golf course or go and check all those. Folks, you've got to see this guy's room. He does all the work for you. And that's what I love. That's what a mentor does. And I want to thank you, Sean. Just want to have a few closing moments. Thanks for your time. Love to the family. And
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're a great friend. Next Wednesday. Now, folks, let me tell you something. Wealth happens at the speed of mentorship. You need wisdom without the weight, learning from the failures and losses of another, and you've got to learn from the best. Now, folks, let me tell you what is happening now. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It costs you nothing to join us next Wednesday. Zero. Morning, I think it's 10 a.m. Brisbane time and 6 p.m. That's 11 a.m. in Sydney and 7 p.m. in Sydney. So join us. It's free. Now, this Sunday, I've got a great message on Reborn called Breaking Demonic Strongholds. How do you break demonic strongholds? Now, also, it's come to my attention that we're continually hearing about people on Instagram and so forth trying to inbox you, and they pretend it's me. It's not me. You can tell it's not me because there's a spelling error in there. It's not me. I don't direct message people on Instagram and say, hey, John, how you going today? Can I help you? Would you like me to? I don't do that. So anything like that you receive generally, well, it is a fake account. Just look at the name. My name is spelled M-E-S-I-T-I, not M-E-S-T-I, not M-E-S-S-T-T-I. It's M-E-S-I-T-I. These are fake accounts. Please report them. Sunday is going to be exceptional. Wednesday, folks, the system wants to keep you ignorant. Sean is going to blow the lid of what's really going on and then give you strategies on how you can build. I want to thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And please, Wednesday, you've got to register. I will let you know that we are doing prayer and pushback. However, it will not be on the Facebook. Because of the nature of the content, we will be putting it on Zoom. I'll let you know the links later. Let's just get Sean's out of the way first, and then we'll look at prayer and pushback later. Folks, thanks for tuning in. God bless you, everyone. Hey, like and subscribe. Join us on all our platforms. Share this link and this message. God bless you, and you have a prosperous life. See you on Sunday.